Usually on this channel, we're used to analyzing analog horror, fictional entities, and creatures designed to unsettle us from behind a screen. But in this video, we're stepping away from fiction and looking at something far more unsettling: real-life cryptids. For centuries, people around the world have reported encounters with creatures that shouldn't exist. Creatures seen deep in forests, isolated mountains, abandoned roads, and places where few people ever go. Some of these encounters are dismissed as hoaxes, misidentifications, or fear taking over in the dark, but others leave behind witnesses, evidence, and questions that still haven't been answered. In this video, we'll be breaking down these encounters by analyzing each cryptid's appearance, behavior, and level of danger they may pose, including one important question: if you ever came face to face with one of these creatures, could you actually survive the encounter? And just to clarify, the survival chances will be based on the assumption that the entity is either angry, upset, agitated, or straight up hunting you. So with that being said, let's take a closer look. Sasquatch, also known as Bigfoot, is one of the most famous cryptids in North American folklore, described as a massive ape-like humanoid covered in dark hair, often standing between 6 to 9 feet tall. While mainstream science considers it folklore, misidentification, or hoax, countless eyewitness reports and stories have kept the legend alive for generations. Its appearance is consistently described as broad-shouldered, heavy-built, and walking upright like a human. Witnesses often report long arms, a strong muscular frame, and facial features that appear disturbingly human. Some encounters also mention an overwhelmingly foul odor, deep vocalizations, and massive footprints left behind in mud or snow. Behaviorally, Sasquatch is usually described as elusive rather than openly aggressive. Most alleged encounters involve it watching from tree lines, following hikers from a distance, knocking on trees, or screaming from deep within forests. However, there are darker stories tied to the creature. Theodore Roosevelt once documented a trapper's account of a mountain man, whose partner was allegedly found with his neck broken after an encounter with what was described as a hairy wild man. In Canada's Naheene National Park Reserve, often called the Valley of Headless Men, some have speculated that Sasquatch may be connected to disappearances and unexplained deaths, though no evidence has ever confirmed this. Modern hunters and researchers have also shared stories of mutilated bodies found in remote wilderness, but these claims remain anecdotal and unsupported by official investigations. Many reports suggest it generally wants nothing to do with humanity. It appears to avoid direct contact, stay hidden, and observe from a distance rather than openly reveal itself. But that may change if you unknowingly enter its territory. Many researchers and witnesses believe Sasquatch may become highly territorial when it feels threatened, cornered, or when its habitat is disrupted. And if that happens, the situation could turn deadly very quickly. Based on reported descriptions of its size, strength, speed, and agility, outrunning it in dense wilderness would be highly unlikely. If one were to ever pursue you aggressively, tools like bear spray or a firearm may be your only possible defense, but even then, against something of that size and power, there's no guarantee it would be enough. The safest course of action is simple: respect remote wilderness, avoid pushing deeper into areas known for repeated sightings, and if these elusive beings are truly out there, leave them in peace, far away from humanity. The 50-foot Congo snake is one of the most fascinating real-world cryptid encounters ever reported, originating from the dense and largely unexplored rainforests of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The sighting allegedly took place in 1959 when a colonel in the Belgian Air Force was returning from a mission by helicopter over the Kantaga region and captured the animal on camera. During the flight, he claimed to have spotted an enormous serpent moving below the jungle canopy, something so large that even decades later, the encounter remains one of cryptozoology's most debated snake sightings. According to the colonel, the creature measured close to 50 feet in length, with a massive triangular head estimated to be roughly 3 feet long and 2 feet wide. He described the snake as having dark green and brown scales across its upper body, with a paler whitish underbelly. When the helicopter circled back for a closer look, the snake allegedly raised nearly the front third of its body into the air as if preparing to strike, giving the crew an even clearer view of its size and markings. Behaviorally, the encounter suggests that this creature may have been highly defensive or territorial. Rather than retreating from the helicopter, it reportedly lifted its body and positioned itself in what appeared to be an attack posture. It is even stated that it lunged towards the aircraft. If true, that would suggest not only incredible size, but enough confidence or aggression to challenge something flying above it. Unlike creatures such as Sasquatch that may avoid humans, a snake of this size would likely view anything within range as either a threat or prey. If you encountered it on foot in the Congo rainforest, escape would be extremely unlikely. A constrictor or ambush predator of that scale would possess overwhelming strength, explosive striking speed, and the advantage of camouflage in dense terrain. Your best chance of survival would be avoiding its habitat entirely, staying in groups, and never venturing into isolated jungle areas unprepared. Dogman is one of the most feared cryptids in North American folklore, described as a massive wolf-like humanoid that walks upright like a man, but moves with the instincts of a predator. Reports of Dogman encounters stretch back generations, with stories appearing across the United States and Canada, especially in cases like the Bray Road sightings and the infamous Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area encounters. Unlike many cryptids that simply watch from a distance, Dogman is often described as something that radiates pure hostility, with witnesses commonly reporting an overwhelming sense of dread before even seeing it. Its appearance is fairly consistent across reports. Witnesses describe a large, heavily built canine humanoid, standing anywhere from human height to nearly 8 to 10 feet tall. It is said to be covered in fur ranging from gray to white to jet black, with a wolf-like muzzle, pointed ears, massive claws, and glowing yellow or golden eyes. One of the strangest reoccurring details is that some of the witnesses first see it moving on all fours like an oversized wolf, only to hear cracking or popping sounds before it rises onto two legs. This has led some to believe it deliberately stays low to avoid detection before revealing its true size. Behaviorally, Dogman is often described as territorial, highly intelligent, and extremely predatory. Unlike creatures like Sasquatch that are usually associated with avoidance, Dogman encounters often involve stalking, intimidation, or direct aggression. Witnesses describe being watched from tree lines, hearing growls, or movements circling campsites, and in some of the darker stories, claims of attacks on hunters or campers. While many of these stories remain unverified, Dogman's reputation across multiple cases is consistently violent and hostile. Survival would likely depend on how quickly you recognize the threat. Running would be the worst possible choice, as many believe it would trigger a predatory response. If one locks onto you, its reported strength, speed, agility, and predatory instincts would make escape on foot nearly impossible. Your best chance is to stay calm, avoid direct eye contact, slowly back towards shelter or a vehicle, and never turn your back. Mothman first entered public attention in 1966 around Point Pleasant, after multiple witnesses began reporting encounters with a towering winged figure lurking near the old TNT area outside town. Over the next year, dozens of sightings would follow, turning what began as a local mystery into one of the most discussed cryptid cases in American history. But what separates Mothman from many other legendary creatures isn't just its appearance, but the disturbing events many believe followed its sightings, especially its association with the collapse of Silver Bridge in 1967. Descriptions of the creature remain fairly consistent across reports. Witnesses describe a dark-winged humanoid standing roughly 6 to 7 feet tall, with a lean but powerful frame with an enormous wingspan. Despite the name Mothman, the earliest accounts describe something far more bird-like than insect-like. Its most unforgettable feature is its glowing red eyes, often described as unnatural, hypnotic, and visible long before the rest of its body comes into focus. Its behavior is where things become truly unusual. Unlike certain cryptids that are associated with territorial aggression, Mothman rarely appears to directly engage with people. Instead, witnesses describe it silently watching from roadsides, rooftops, abandoned areas, and tree lines before suddenly vanishing. In one of the earliest accounts, it allegedly pursued a car at high speed before disappearing into the night. Over time, many began noticing a disturbing pattern. Mothman sightings often seem to happen shortly before tragedy, disaster, or unexplained events. Whether coincidence or something far stranger remains unknown. So if you ever encounter Mothman, the danger may not come from claws, teeth, or physical violence. To this day, there are no widely documented cases of Mothman directly attacking or killing anyone. Instead, the real fear comes from simply being near it. Many people believe sightings are tied to terrible luck, disaster, or life-changing tragedy shortly afterward. So physically you may survive the encounter, but if the legends are true, the real threat may begin only after it's already gone. Seeing it might not mean you're in danger right now, but it means something worse is still coming. Skinwalkers are among the most feared beings connected to the traditions of the Navajo Nation. Unlike many cryptids that are described as undiscovered animals or physical creatures, skinwalkers are traditionally viewed as malevolent witches, individuals who have turned away from spiritual balance and chosen a darker path. In Navajo belief, they are said to gain the ability to transform into animals, imitate voices, possess living beings, or disguise themselves as something familiar in order to deceive others. Because of the cultural significance surrounding them, these stories are traditionally treated with seriousness and rarely discussed openly outside of trusted circles. Descriptions of the skinwalkers vary depending on the encounter, but many reports describe them appearing as unnatural versions of animals, often resembling coyotes, wolves, deers, or other creatures associated with bad omens. Witnesses frequently mention that something feels wrong about them. Their movements may appear too human, their limbs may bend unnaturally, or their eyes may reflect light in disturbing ways. In some stories, they are also seen in partially human forms, appearing thin, gaunt, and almost corpse-like before shifting again. What makes skinwalkers especially terrifying is their behavior. Unlike creatures that rely on brute force, skinwalkers are often associated with manipulation, deception, and psychological intimidation. Stories often describe them mimicking voices of family members, scratching on windows, appearing on isolated roads, or watching silently from tree lines. Some accounts claim they can move with unnatural speed, keeping pace with vehicles, or appearing in places where escape should have been impossible. Whether taken as literal encounters, spiritual warnings, or cultural cautionary tales, they are almost always associated with fear, bad intentions, and the feeling of being hunted. According to traditional stories and folklore surrounding skinwalkers, physically overpowering one may not be enough. Many legends suggest that the most effective way to truly stop a skinwalker is through spiritual intervention, specifically a skilled medicine person with the traditions of the Navajo Nation. In these accounts, rituals or ceremonies may be performed to expose a witch's true nature, and force the evil they practice back onto themselves. As for physical confrontation, different stories describe a variety of methods. Some legends claim they can be wounded or killed with conventional weapons such as bullets, while others say weapons coated in white ash may be more effective. Certain stories also mention silver, fire, or even speaking the skinwalker's true human name as ways of weakening or exposing them. However, these accounts vary widely depending on the storyteller, region, and cultural context. The hide behind is originally told among early loggers and woodsmen who worked deep in remote forests. Whenever someone disappeared without a trace, especially those who wandered too far from camp at night, the hide behind was often blamed. Unlike many cryptids that rely on brute strength or speed alone, this creature became feared for something far more unnerving: its ability to remain completely unseen. The descriptions of the hide behind are intentionally vague, not because witnesses forgot what they saw, but because most claim they never actually got a clear look at it. Early stories describe it as a large, powerful creature capable of dragging full-grown men into the woods, with ease. But the moment someone tries to look directly at it, it supposedly slips behind a tree, a rock, another object, or even behind the observer themselves. No matter how quickly you turn, it's just always out of sight, which is where it gets its name. Its hunting behavior is what makes it truly terrifying. The hide behind is said to stalk people silently through dense forests, waiting for them to become isolated before striking without warning. Victims are reportedly dragged back into the wilderness and devoured, with some legends claiming it specifically feeds on the intestines of its prey. Other stories mention hearing low hissing sounds almost like a snake, shortly before someone vanishes. Because of this, many early lumber camps treated strange noises in the forest after dark very seriously. If you ever found yourself dealing with something like the Hide Behind, survival would be incredibly difficult. Not because it's the strongest cryptid, but because you may never actually see it coming. Its greatest weapon is concealment. However, one strange detail appears throughout multiple legends. The creature is said to have a strong aversion to alcohol. In old logging camps, some believe carrying or consuming alcohol was enough to keep it away, which may explain why whiskey was treated almost like survival gear in certain stories. The Wendigo is one of the most feared entities, originating in the traditions of several Algonquin-speaking peoples across regions of Canada and the northern United States. Unlike many cryptids that are simply described as hidden animals or predators, the Wendigo is often portrayed as something far darker, similar to the Skinwalker, a supernatural being tied to starvation, cannibalism, greed, and spiritual corruption. In many traditional accounts, it is not born as a monster, but created when a human gives into acts of cannibalism, extreme greed, or becomes consumed by unnatural hunger. Descriptions vary on the tradition, but many accounts portray the Wendigo as a towering skeletal humanoid, with gray or ash-colored skin stretched tightly over its bones. Its eyes are often described as sunken deep into its skull, its lips torn apart and bloody, and its body so emaciated that it looks almost dead. Yet despite its starved appearance, it is said to possess incredible strength. Some legends describe it as growing larger every time it feeds, ensuring that its hunger can never be truly satiated. Witnesses also describe a foul stench of decay and a sudden unnatural drop in temperature before it appears. What makes the Wendigo especially terrifying is its intelligence. Unlike a simple predator, many stories describe it speaking, taunting, and psychologically tormenting its victims before killing them. It is associated with freezing forests, famine, and isolation, often stalking those who are already vulnerable. Some legends even suggest prolonged exposure to a Wendigo or the temptation of survival cannibalism can cause a person to become one themselves, turning the creature into both a monster and a curse. If you ever encountered something like the Wendigo, outrunning it would be likely impossible. It's often described as tireless, relentless, and perfectly adapted to cold wilderness environments. Killing one isn't as simple as physical damage. Many stories claim the only true way to destroy Wendigo is by targeting its frozen heart, often described as heart of ice. Legends say this can be done by burning the creature completely, or by breaking or piercing the heart using materials like silver, iron, or steel. Because the Wendigo is so strongly associated with winter, cold, and insatiable hunger, fire is often considered its greatest weakness. We spent a lot of time on this channel breaking down fictional monsters, analog horror, and creatures designed to scare us from behind a screen. But real-world cryptids hit differently. Because whether these encounters are misunderstood animals, folklore brought to life, or something we simply don't understand yet, every one of them started with someone who swore they saw something was real. From creatures hidden in deep forests, to things lurking beneath dark water, to entities tied to tragedy, disappearances, and places people refuse to return to. What makes these stories so unsettling is that many of them come from real locations, real witnesses, real evidence, and in some cases, real fear. And maybe that's what makes cryptids so terrifying. Not the possibility that they exist, but the possibility that if they do, they've been avoiding us this entire time. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, friends.